At approximately 7:45 this morning, we were notified of a structure fire. While the crews were en route, the first in chief immediately upgraded to a second alarm, meaning that we would get additional trucks and engines and personnel. Upon arrival and realizing that it was a pool supply company, a swimming pool supply company, he upgraded that to a third alarm, which then also got mutual aid partners and additional resources. The crews fought the fire. We did have chemical release. There were 3 primary chemicals inside that were involved in that in the fire. And so we've also had hazmat crews out here. Through this process, we've also been working with our Public Works Department, which is also our stormwater folks, to make sure that we can manage the runoff. And also we're working with other partners on the hazmat side so that we can begin the cleanup and remediation to make sure that the community remains safe as it is.
You said 3 chemicals. Do you know what those 3 chemicals are?
Yeah, one is pool salt. The other one is what they would call trichlor. It's what you think of as the chlorine tablets. The other one is hypochlorite, which is shock, what a lot of people would call shock for their pools. Those were the 3 that were involved. There were other chemicals in the building, but they were not involved in the fire.
Are those 3 hazardous chemicals?
2 of those are considered hazardous materials, and that's why if you've driven the site as you've been here, you've seen that we have several of our hazmat units here. The company where the fire happened at already has a hazmat remediation team en route. They'll be here at about 10:30, and it's another reason we've been making sure that we work with our stormwater folks and our people here in town to make sure we can contain that and keep everybody safe.
Are you able to elaborate at all about how businesses like this are supposed to report what chemicals they have in their facility? Do they have to file a Tier 2 report? Do you know if this business did that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, they would file what we call a Tier 2 report that lets us know as the fire department and emergency management what chemicals are inside of a building. This particular business is pretty new. In fact, we have recently done fire inspections on them, and they were compliant. And matter of fact, we were actually scheduled to be back out here this week for some follow-up with them. So I can tell you that from a compliance standpoint, to my knowledge, everything is in order based on the information that I have.
And the cause, is that still under investigation? Or?
Yeah, because of the inhalation risks that are there, we have not entered to start that investigation. So I have no answers on the investigation at this point as to what caused the fire.
Can you speak to the shelter in place?
Yeah, so the shelter in place was issued shortly after we arrived. That was because we had a large plume of smoke. We had people, a couple blocks away who said they could smell something. So it was completely out of precaution that we put the shelter in place, precaution in place, and it has now been lifted. As you can see, the air is clear, and so that shelter in place has been lifted.
And the chemicals go into any storm drains, and is there concern there that you need to talk about?
So as I said, with the storm water and the storm drains, that's why we're working with our public works folks, our hazmat teams. We do have precautions that are set up so that we can prevent that. We know that they will get into these, but we know where this is going, and that's where we have it set up to contain everything and work through that. So it's not making it downstream through our system or into our water system or anything else. It is safe.
Was it somebody on scene who called it in, or was it a person who worked here, or was it somebody driving by?
So it was an employee reported the fire. The business was open and operating when they came through, and so she was able to, she actually saw what looked like some off-gassing, almost like fog out behind. She walked out to see what it was, and at that point realized that there was a fire, immediately notified all the occupants. They got out and they called 911.
And 2 firefighters were transported. Can you speak to that?
Yes, so within the past hour or so, we have had 2 firefighters who were transported. They are stable. They were for inhalation-related injuries or illness, but they are stable. Everybody's fine, and again, we're gonna make sure that we treat them and we take care of them and get them any medical help that they may need.
When you're dealing with chemicals like this, does it change tactically how a fire department attacks a fire? And you just mentioned that the firefighters were dealing with smoke inhalation. Does it present more problems? Is it a more intense situation?
Hazardous materials will complicate any response that we make, especially a building fire like this. And in this case, the initial response, they know that there's hazardous materials. They're aware of the building and the contents. And so they're going to make sure that they're on that air. We're going to make sure that they're decontaminated before they ever leave this scene. We have decontamination efforts set up right now for all of our personnel that have been on the scene before they go back. And so it does complicate it, but luckily here in Frisco, we're blessed to have those hazardous materials specialists and those people who can handle these type of emergencies right alongside our firefighters.
Who all helped you fight this, and how many firefighters do you think you had out here?
I don't know the exact number of firefighters. I can tell you that quite a few of our resources were here. Little Elm Fire Department was also here. The colony came in to backfill some of our stations so that we could continue to provide services to our citizens. So it was several of our neighbors who helped.
Is there any more threat or danger to the surrounding area? I know the shelter in place has been lifted, but what about for neighborhoods nearby? Is there any concern for them?
There is no danger. I just left a briefing before we came down here to talk to you, and so there is no danger to anybody in town as a result of this fire.
You mentioned that you guys had been out here recently because the business was new. From everything you observed, everything seemed on the up and up. I mean, I think you said they appeared to be in compliance, but was
Correct.
there anything that you were going to follow up on? Were you still in the process of?
I'd have to get exactly why they were coming back out. It may have been for another routine inspection, but I can tell you that we've worked with them to make sure that they were compliant with what they were storing and how much they were storing.
And no employees were injured?
No employees were injured.
We heard the fire started on the outside of the building in a vehicle or something. Can you speak to that at all?
I can't because, again, we haven't started the investigation because of the health hazards. We don't want to put our investigators into that environment at this point, but we will have answers as we complete that investigation.
And just to elaborate again on the Tier 2, that is something that they list every chemical they have, and is that something that's periodically updated, or is that something that's filed?
So tier 2s are typically annually, and so they're updated. The thing to keep in mind with the Tier 2 is that's our maximum allowable quantity. So that's not necessarily what's on the site. It's just what they're saying is the maximum amount that they would have. So we don't know exactly how much was here, but they would file one.
So the Tier 2 would not say how much was in there.
No.
But as far as you know, that there was one on file.
As far as I know, and we can verify that, but to the best of my knowledge, there was a Tier 2. Any other questions? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
I'll let you guys pick your mics.
Is that Tier 2? Do you know? Is that a public record? Is that something we can try to get our hands on? Or